I want to put a nice bow on the lower body mechanics because I kind of had this epiphany in regards to, remember how I said in the goal of the lower body mechanics? So if you're watching this, haven't purchased the ebook, you probably have no idea what we're talking about. But hopefully you did purchase the ebook, so you have a pretty good indication of what we're talking about here within the lower body mechanics. But in terms of like the goal that I mentioned in regards to creating an energy system, and I look at energy and force all kind of the same piece, right? So in terms of creating this energy and force within our lower body mechanics, creating it, storing it, transferring it, blocking it, and having it available for our upper body to consume it and produce effortless frickin' cheddar cheese, right? So talking a little bit more about this energy and this force that we're creating, kind of look at it almost in three different components in regards to your drive leg mechanics within ground force production, right? So you're utilizing the ground to produce energy and produce force, okay? And then you're storing, I look at kind of a storing mechanism. We refer to this in the drive leg mechanics, storing this for a moment in time for then the hips to initiate its rotation, which then transfers that essentially backside energy to the front side, okay? So when we look at the timing of hip rotation, we look into the deeper dives of the hip rotation mechanics. This is our transferring effect. We're transferring this, and again, we're trying to get as much back as possible. And what I mean by that is we're producing, say, 100% within our initial moves and our drive leg mechanics, and we're trying to get as much back as we possibly can. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen. There's, we're through time and space. Like there's instability issues. There's just a whole lot of things that are going to come up that affect us in terms of this energy system and this transferring of force. So when we look at the hip rotation, it's the initiation of that rotation to transfer that to the front, which then proceeds into the lead leg block mechanics, which is then going to be the piece that we need to effectively block to have that energy available for our upper body mechanics to, like I said, consume and not have to rely so much on, arm speed and independent energy with the arm. That's when we fall victim of injuries and whatnot. So we want to utilize a couple different energies and force, which is ground force, rotational energy through segmentation, right? We talked about in the hip rotation mechanics chapter within segmentation of the lower body mechanics and the upper body mechanics that create rotational energy or torque, right? So you're creating this whirlwind effect, you're creating force into the ground, and then you're also creating acceleration, right? You have acceleration, which is forward force, which is then going to be blocked by the lead leg. So you have three different kind of energy systems that are occurring throughout the delivery, and it's all about like within the lower body, right? Now, obviously the upper body has influence to that. We talked about within the lead leg block, if you're not positioned accordingly with your upper body, you're not going to be able to utilize all that energy. We talked about within the hip rotation mechanics, if you don't segment, you're not going to be able to create a whole lot of rotational energy. And then a drive leg, we talked a little bit about the upper body influence within trunk tilts, trunk counter rotation and stuff like that, but three different types of energy system, all stemming from the lower body mechanics and coming into the upper body mechanics we'll talk about within the next chapter. But we just, again, the goal of the lower body mechanics, we want to just make sure that we're creating this energy flow and everything is occurring. We talk about timing and positioning all the time. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's extremely important, but it's hard to kind of instruct and to teach because, the more that you instruct hands-on, you start realizing like, man, I'm just telling people to like get in these positions, which then what? Creates kind of these robotic movements. And that's kind of the opposite effect that we want. We want athletic, rhythmic movements. That's why I put a lot of emphasis on the initial move and the rhythm and the tempo to help influence the following movements, right? So it's going to be individual dependent. I know I say that a lot as well, but it really does come down to identifying what the individual needs, the sensory input, the environment, the cueing. Cueing is huge. And, even the constraint settings. I talk about like the environment. Some people some athletes need to feel exactly the sensation that they might have not been feeling because they've been instilling inefficient movement patterns, right? So within drive leg mechanics, you need to get them to feel a way to engage the drive leg, whether it be the glute, whether it be just the whole foot being powerful into the ground or the knee just being stable, like whatever it is, the cues are always going to kind of be different, and the feedback's always going to be different per individual, right? And then the hip rotation, you know, sometimes we need to get guys enough repetitions at full segmentation to understand what that feels like. Same with the lead leg block. You need to create environments in which the athlete can really feel like, okay, this is landing in knee flexion, and now as I rotate, if I position my hips here, oh, I can see that kind of claw back knee extension type dynamic here. Because here's the thing, man, like if you don't create an environment that influences feedback for the athlete, then how is their brain going to then be able to signal to the body on how to move efficiently, right? So that's my biggest piece, man, is like we got to get these kids or whoever you're working with the feedback and the sensory input, the necessary stimulus or stimuli, I don't know which one it is, if you will. So hopefully that makes sense. Now we can move on to the upper body mechanics and hopefully work our way towards becoming just masterminds at this whole pitching mechanics thing. Okay, guys. Yeah, I'll throw a little cheddar cheese here. What is it? 3-2, bottom 9, World Series, Game 7. No big deal. Hezzy, and we're rocking. All right, I gotta go.